In this unit, we're going to start Chapter 2, Elementary Programming. Basically, we're going to look at a couple programming examples and look at them line by line to see how they work. It's kind of a little bit of everything before we get into a lot of details about particular things, just to give us enough information to work with to write a very basic program. So in the previous chapter, we learned how to create, compile, and run a Java program. Simple program that just printed something to the screen. And then we're going to work on solving some practical problems with a program this time. We're going to learn about some Java data types and related subjects like variables. We're going to learn about constants, operators, expressions, how to get input from a user, and look at a little bit more ways to do some output. So we're going to start with an example. So computing the area of a circle, and I have the code for this loaded into NetBeans. I created a new project called chapter2demo.java, and then I put the code in here for us to look at. Hopefully that's big enough. There, it's a little bit bigger there. So here's my class, chapter2demo, and here's our main method. Okay, so this computes the area of a circle given the radius. So we can see here double radius, double area, and then we set radius equal to 20. And I'm going through this quick because we're going to talk about each line individually. And then here we calculate a radius, and then we're going to print some things out. So it's going to use a radius of 20 to calculate radius times radius, which is radius squared, times pi. And then it's going to print out the answer. So let's just run it and see what it does. And it says the area for the circle of radius 20 is 1,256.636. Okay, so let's look at this line by line through these sides here and through these slides and see what happens. See how it actually works. So inside the main method, we start with this line, double radius. Okay, so radius is going to be a variable we're going to use. But before we can use a variable, we have to declare it. It's called declaring a variable. And basically, when we declare a variable, we set aside a little piece of memory in order to store the contents of that variable. So in this case, it's setting out a little area called radius in our computer's memory that's going to hold a value. Okay, and we're going to name it radius. Okay, and the kind of data that it's going to hold in this case is a double. And so what does double mean? It means it's a double precision number. What does that mean, double? It's just a number that's got decimal points. And because it's a double precision, it's short for double precision, that means it can store a lot of decimal points. And later on we'll talk about why that is. So this basically sets aside an area called radius in memory that can store a number with a lot of decimal places. Okay. The next line, if you look at it, double area, looks just like double radius, right? It's doing the same thing. Double area is setting aside another piece of memory big enough to hold a number with a lot of decimal places, a double. Okay. And this one is going to be called area. Right now, those locations in memory do not have a value. We just declared them. Okay, when you declare a variable, actually Java does set defaults for some things, but for practical purposes, we're going to say it sets aside the memory, and we won't count on Java setting any values for us. In this next line, right here, we have the assignment operator. So equals is an assignment operator in Java. And equals, anytime you see it in this context, it takes the thing on the right, whatever's on the right, and assigns it to the thing on the left. So it's assigning the value of 20 to radius, that variable radius. Okay, so radius is now equal 20. If you look over here, it shows our little area out in memory that was set aside now contains the value 20. The next line that's not a comment computes the area. The comment tells us what it does. it takes the value of radius, which is 20, multiplies radius times pi. So that's radius squared times pi. And there's that equal sign again, the assignment operator. It takes the things on the right, computes them, radius times 3.14, takes that answer and stores it in the variable called area, which is that place out in memory that we set aside, and it stores that value 1256.636. The last line of our program is a print line, and we're familiar with that. So we've seen a print line before, and we've seen that in a print line, anything we put between quotation marks, those letters get printed out. But this has some extra things in it. So print line, and it says the area of the circle of radius. Notice there's a space after the S there. And then we have a plus sign. Now, plus normally means add things together, right? You were used to that. But when you use a plus along with a string, with these letters in the quotation marks are called a string, because a string of characters. When you use it with a string of characters, plus means an operation called concatenation. Concatenation. And it basically means just tack something onto the end. Okay, so it's going to take the area for the circle of radius, and then we're on the end of that word, right after the space, we're going to tack on radius. Notice radius here is not in quotation marks. Opening quotation marks there, end of the quotation marks here, and we're going to tack on that variable radius. Now, it's not going to print the word radius, it's going to use the value of that variable. So the area for the circle of, and then it will print 20, and we saw that in the example. And then, because we're still working with something with strings in it, it's going to concatenate on the word is. Notice there's a space before the I and a space after the S. And then the plus sign says we're going to concatenate one other thing, and that's the variable area. And we know variable, it's a variable because it doesn't have quotations around it. So it's going to concatenate the area, which is 1256.636. And that's what we saw over here. The area for the circle of radius, and we have the concatenation operator, radius is, and then the area, and it prints it out down here. The area for the circle of radius substitutes in that value for 20, prints the space, the is in the other space next, and then prints the result of that calculation that we stored in the variable area. It prints it out from that line right there.